we're going to defer this question for personal outreach because of the nature of the question the way it was phrased. So, apologize about that. All right, a middle school family. What screening process is there for employees? Asking because a custodian at Northern Trails elementary schools that was just arrested for child pornography. How can we stop someone like this from being hired again? That's a blanket statement. What I can say to that is, knowing the vigorous work that we have to do by regulation, if there are criminal charges or concerns on someone's record, that is brought to the district's attention prior to hiring. That's a general rule. I would turn to the panelists then for anybody, perhaps Mr. Hay, to speak to some of that as well.
So I'm going to do my best. I'm not HR, but clearly there are background checks that are done. In addition to the background checks, as Daryl talked about, looking for a criminal history, there's the standard reference check that you would expect. So we try to be as diligent as possible with all of that. But in terms of if there was something that was criminal in the background, especially as it relates to our business, that would definitely be a red flag and something that would be of great concern and would disqualify someone from employment here within the district. And I think, Daryl, with transportation, there are other things that you would specifically be looking at, but from a teaching aspect, which is where I am for administrators and teachers, there are certain things that we are definitely looking for. There's a vigorous application process, interviewing process, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. Specifically, I typically don't like to put people's names out there, but if you have specific questions, or maybe I didn't answer that, Christina Neese is our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. I know that she would be more than happy to answer that, or you could come and see me if there was something that you were concerned about with teaching teachers or administrators, because that's where I typically tend to, those are the folks I tend to hire.
Very good, thank you. And to reiterate our opening remarks about that is that we are not speaking, nor are we able to speak to specifics about that topic in the news at this time. So the next question is, who is the appropriate person to contact with or about, I'm assuming this question, of the OK to Say program?
So the OK to Say program is a program that's for students that goes into Michigan State Police. There's also Silent Observer. There's always somebody, and there's Fast 50 out there. There's a lot of different programs that we share with students. So when they put an anonymous tip, there's people on the backside assigned to each school that receives that information. So if an OK to Say tip were to come in, a lot of the times it's the building principal as well as the SRO, and then the tip can then be investigated. And a lot of times with the Silent Observer OK to Say, we report back. And with Fast 50, students actually receive $50 upon receiving the tip and getting appropriate information and completing an investigation. So we do see OK to Say tip and Silent Observer used a lot of times for students in cases of vandalism in the bathrooms, vaping in the bathrooms, those types of things. So we do respond to all those and investigate each and every one of those tips that comes in.
You'll also see OK to Say posters. So if you came into Nat Forest, you would see OK to Say posters throughout the building with a phone number on there, so students see it, they have access to it, parents, anyone. So it's advertised.
And I'll add to that, Lisa, that on every one of the district's school bus fleets, there are OK to Say placards at the front with the same information that she spoke of about in the schools on the posters. All right, this comes from a high school family. What do we need to do to encourage the district to hire more counselors at the middle school and high school level?
Encourage more funding for schools. It's the shortest answer I can give. There's, it's not a design. It's not a question of do we see this as a resource that we don't have. But just like a family, you need to live within your means, and that's what we have to do as a school district. It's not that we don't see counselors as valuable, they are, but like any organization, we have a budget to live within.
The next question is not specific, but it says, are classroom sizes getting smaller?
Was that, are classroom sizes getting smaller?
Correct.
I think that would depend on which building you're in, what grade level you're in. I might, if I were to reframe that question, I think, and maybe I'm not answering it accurately, but are we a district of declining enrollment? Maybe we're seeing fewer students, but in some classrooms that might not feel like fewer students because you might have higher numbers. So that's a really difficult question to answer depending on what experience, what classroom your child is in, maybe what program they're in, because in some cases, some classrooms they do have more students and some have fewer, so difficult question to answer.
This is a elementary school level question, multifaceted and to try to encapsulate everything that's being asked. If we care about mental health, why are our resources from the government not reflected in the schools? In effect, one counselor per 2 schools. Why do students have to wait a month to get a session with their counselor? And then there struggles to be enough staff. How do we address bullying if kids can't get access to a counselor? Not every child is seen, heard. Why are we promoting this? Why aren't kids with IEPs all treated the same? Some get the help they need, others do not. More services are needed for kids to thrive mentally. Resources are needed. Referrals must go to professionals who believe in therapy and extra help and not mock or turn parents away from treatment. Why don't we believe in it? My child's doctor refused therapy script. She doesn't believe in that.
Can you back that up and start from the beginning and do one question at a time
Sure.
for me? That was a lot.
It is a lot. Why are we not following the mental health guidelines? One counselor per 2 schools.
Well, I can't answer that one. I know that I have the next 2 I can.
Okay. The next 2 are, how do we address bullying? If kids can't get access to a counselor.
Yep, so I can tell you, and I think there was a comment in there about waiting a month.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you Cindy is on it, and no child has ever waited a month that we are aware. Like if they came to us and asked, she has met with them, and if she can't meet with them, then I do. I am not Cindy, but I can at least help them until Cindy can. And when it comes to bullying, that's really, they would primarily come to me first, and then I partner with Cindy. So if there is a situation where we have students who are being mistreated, we kind of attack it in a two-faceted way, and that would be, I look at it from the investigation standpoint, ensuring that we have all of the information, that the students are given due process, and then I'm in charge of the consequences for those actions, and then Cindy comes in and we figure out how we can support that child so that they can learn and grow and make better decisions in the future.
I have think that's very consistent with what our elementary counseling team tries to do. If anyone here has reached out and not heard back in a month, please reach out again. We do get emails and phone calls all day long, and we are always prioritizing, and that is hard sometimes. I remember specifically a few years ago, one parent reached out to me with what felt to them was a very big concern, and it was a concern, but she had no idea the other thing that we were dealing with at that moment, but it should never be wrong. So if that ever happens, and you're not getting a response within a day or two, please reach out again. I can assure you that that would be an oversight and not intentional.
And so I will speak if there's a mental health concern, right? If there's a safety concern, a bullying concern, those types of things, those are addressed, and especially at the high school level. There are, even if we have to divert some moments, there are additional adults that can handle those situations. Depending on what the context is, there's a lot there. You know, we do sometimes defer students at the high school level of, you may not get an appointment for a month if we are doing a program lesson for juniors, for example, right? We're not talking mental health here, programming pieces. And we want you to have the classroom lesson before we sit down and have an individual appointment. Because of the breadth of our work, we do delay some of those things, but we never delay the safety, the emotional or the physical safety for students. It's just not paramount with anyone. I will, on the student, the counselor ratio piece, of course, I would visit that. If you were to compare, and I don't have the stats off the top of my head, if you were to look at our district across Michigan and then across the nation, we are in a spot that many aren't, right? We have elementary counselors, our high school ratio is 1 to 300. Yes, the organization that runs the school counselors says the ideal would be 1 to 250. We're not living in the ideal in our country, right? It's not just in our space, so that's where we're lucky to have some of those other resources available.
And we would love to have more, but like Scott said, it's a funding issue and having to live within what we can do.
The other thing I'll add about that particular question is it sounds like it's very specific and there is a need for additional support. I would recommend that you reach directly out to your school administrator on that, and we will put it in the parking lot for later being addressed and follow up. We will do that again. And we will do that again, and we will maintain quorum here this evening. Thank you. Next question this evening, ma'am. I'm going to ask you to maintain order, please. I'm going to ask you to maintain order, please, so that we can continue the program, and we can follow up with you individually later. Okay. This is not a conversational session. This is, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we will maintain appropriate forum here. Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, stop now. We will continue with our questions. We will continue with our questions and address your concern privately later. We're happy to help you with it. Do you understand that? Thank you. Now then, next question. Kids used to get bus safety training. Why do they not get this? Oh, this one's for me. I can tell you that. Here's the plan for going forward for bus safety. I can't tell you what happened to the bus safety program. I can tell you that COVID had an impact on that. We had every year for many years done bus safety at the K-6 grade levels in all of our buildings. We had specially trained drivers who were part of our school safety team. And they went out into the buildings. They did that routinely every year within the first 6 weeks of school. After that, after COVID, that program fell off, like a number of things have changed. And we're working toward a brand new model for that in the coming school year, 24-25, where we will work with drivers specific to each of the buildings and have all of the buildings trained to provide bus safety in a way to add to the model of our PBIS and to create yet another level of great connection between our bus drivers and the school communities that they serve on each of their routes. And I think that that's important because we then connect our drivers as part of individual school staff with the school staff and all of their students. So we will be resurrecting the school safety program in the coming school year. So thank you for asking that question. I'm happy to answer that question for us.